Kao što sam pomenula pred našu pauzu, nastavljamo sa programom, sledi panel Veštačka inteligencija između tehnologije, prava i sloboda. Zamolit ću Dejana Đukića, direktora Fondacije Registra nacionalnog internet domena Srbije, koja je domaćin
which is the host of the IGF this year too, and she will present to us the panelists, sorry. Good day, everyone, and welcome to the panel discussion about AI between technology, rights, and freedom. Today we have extremely interesting panelists and speakers. I will present them and give an introduction about this panel. Together with us, we have Sanja Savčić, professor on the University of Law of Novi Sad, Maja Zarić from the Ministry of Information and Telecommunications, Branimir Todorović, the founder of Autonomous Intelligent Machines and Systems. First, what we had the opportunity to acquire in practice and to see in practice is that development of technology is quicker than the regulations. We have seen that on the examples of protection of intellectual property, regulations on personal data protection, also IT security and other areas. When you look at it from the different angle, it's as if the legislator, let things be solved in their own way, so if it doesn't happen, they will solve it. And in practice, certain areas will be pre-regulated, and the practices and application regulating thereof is not simple. Of course, it is very difficult to give a joint conclusion because all these areas are quite different. We had the information that the European Parliament started the adoption of regulation about regulating AI, which will be the first regulation in this area that regulates this area in more detail. And in this panel, we will try to give an answer to as many questions as possible in this hour. And the panelists that are experts in their respective areas will give their view of this problem. We'll start with Sanja, and her position and position of science is interesting to us. What are the expectations? What are the risks? We want to have an overview of this act of the European Parliament that I mentioned. Thank you. I want to welcome the audience, which is different in terms of background, and to thank you for your invitation. It's an honor to participate in this debate with experts from other areas. I'm here on behalf of the legal profession. We will try to provide answers to many questions, and this is true. This will be an attempt in view of the current information that we have, because we are in AI, which is, very complex. The name of the panel, as if a verb is missing in the title, and I will tell you legally what it could be. So how technology, the law and freedoms are connected, what is expected from law, and we could say that artificially intelligent, the verb missing is, noun, is development. Development of artificial intelligence can be either protection of freedom and rights and development of technologies based on AI. And there we have the role of the law, the intervention of the state, namely, that will regulate this, try to achieve the reconciliation between the technologies, rights, and freedom. Why reconciliation? Speaking about technologies, Dejan made an introduction about intellectual property. We cannot speak about artificial intelligence not mentioning intellectual property. Although I'm a professor, I don't want to make any lectures about the development of intellectual property. What is intellectual property when it's regulated? What is changed on the market? it's not essential, but the goal is to, well, by guaranteeing certain rights, to protect this technology in terms of encourage its further development. If you guarantee some rights, that someone has any monopoly rights or positions to the market, the investments, for example, in the project, AI project, they will get a return on investments when they get asked how this project will be developed. It was a requirement back because pioneering systems of AI are known for a long time. But what happened in the meantime? It's been used from the 2020. AI has become as a virus that escaped from the lab. What does it mean in terms of challenges for the right? First, how to protect this technology that we will today call artificial intelligence, because relative to what we found at a moment when this AI system became widespread, in many segments it's different than traditional forms of subject of protection of intellectual property rights. This is the framework where the protection of technology is required. But since this virus that escaped the lab went to a sphere that undermines freedoms and rights, seeing the name of the panels that preceded, there was a lot of what I wanted to listen to. I wasn't, unfortunately, I didn't attend. I assume that there was mention about how AI is related to rights and freedoms. So what is expected from the law to provide the stimuli and to encourage the further development of AI? It's not only about technology and market. Everything that can be done by a robot instead of us, we will leave it to them. We have come to a comfort zone when it comes to artificial intelligence, when we need it and we use it. At the same time, we have undermined the rights and freedom. Why? Because the key is artificial intelligence. This is data. And this is the database system, first of all, and then there are elements of algorithms, etc. This data are, even to a minimum, are very often subject of protection, of copyright or intellectual property right, etc., and most dangerous for the citizen, which is not the holder of any IP right. These are the rights, the freedoms of the common citizen. Data that we can put in the personal data realm. Other data also that are not or intellectual property or personal data, but can lead to harmful consequences in daily life, consequences for the rights and freedoms to entities. Let alone, since most of us know this, the initiative for legislature to get involved. This originates from the fact that the state became endangered or undermined at a certain point, in some higher interests, not only individual ones. So globally, and we are speaking at the global level because the internet is a global network, we have an initiative from the framework of artificial intelligence to be reduced to some borders and limits that can be controlled. And then we have a major challenge for lawyers, and everybody involved in that.
Recently, 5 days ago, in the European Union, there was a document that was adopted. Why am I mentioning the EU? It's because there's a parallel process in China and in the US, and I think that they are the most striking examples. So the EU, colloquially speaking, adopted an AI law providing harmonization, aiming to govern AI systems and the amendments to the law that might actually regulate this area. The law is really comprehensive. The text was adopted, as I've just said, and it will be definitely adopted in June. This is the first act from all the draft that was adopted. I will repeat it, although we've mentioned it today. We will no longer be speaking about a special form of AI system protection in comparison to what existed before, but we will be talking about the second element, namely about the control of the AI application. There is a system of different processes. If the application of the systems pertains to the category of high risks, of limited, small or no risk, zero risk. So we need to predefine the risks and then foresee different measures. If we talk about unacceptable risk, the application of these systems will be absolutely forbidden. We can anticipate that such system will cause a series of problems. I can talk here now about intellectual property rights. How will we protect by a patent a system of AI whose use will be forbidden? What is the essence is that we will try to establish a framework in order to control the implementation and application. Our law is not behind that. We do have ethical guidelines in order to govern AI systems and that are harmonized with European texts. Thank you very much, Sanja. Maja, you come from the Ministry of Information and Telecommunication. You've participated in different conferences. What are the attitudes of the Ministry and of international organization? What is the perception of problems that might emanate from the use of AI, protection of privacy and security? Thank you very much. I would first of all like to thank you for the invitation and from the fruitful discussion that we were able to hear before the beginning of our panel. As the professor said, we might even repeat some of the items that were already mentioned. Our ministry is not strictly linked to the Act on AI, but I've been monitoring for quite a few years from the aspect of media freedom and freedom of speech. It is very interesting to hear the aspects of the work from international organization. In 2020, by the end of 2019, by participating in these committees that regard the freedom of speech in the European Commission, the European Parliament, and UNESCO, we came to a conclusion that AI tools influence the freedom of speech, although we haven't been aware of that. This is why since 2020 we've started organizing an international conference workshop about the influence on AI, aiming to have the fundamental ideas of the AI. We invited all international organizations, state partners, and other stakeholders. There were about 40 participants, representatives of different institutions. Interestingly, 6 experts needed additional time to get prepared because the link between AI tools and the freedom of speech had not been sufficiently explored. That very fact speaks in favor of the complexity of the field and of the fact that different stakeholders should have a response, but perhaps they don't have it at time, on time. If we want to see the influence of the AI and the freedom of speech, we've organized different workshops for school children and for teachers.
From the standpoint of policy creation, you have at the level of the EU, the legislator, which is consequentially tied to our European path, and it will, at some point of time, will be integrated in our national legislation. We have laws made. You have the YouTube regulation on audiovisual media services protecting juveniles. So progressively it will come to us, and well, until the moment when it's like mature enough when it comes to AI, when what's done at the level of Council of Europe, for example, the AI Convention, which is, well, the zero draft, so to speak, is finished, and you have consultation. Interestingly enough, for the Council of Europe, you have a great, so to speak, stakeholder circle. For example, you have the CAI committee in the US as observers. We have other countries, and we see what we have heard today, that different international organizations, let's not forget the OECD, because the act that we mentioned in the definition is harmonized with the OECD definition to define AI. So we have different international organizations from parts of the UN, Council of Europe, OSCE, which is, are into regulating part of the artificial intelligence or trying to encompass everything. In that attempt to harmonize things and to address them, you look for the least common denominator to protect these rights, because the consensus of the state well, these processes are lengthy and bureaucracy is always lagging behind. But essentially, what we all know, technology is developing fast, and these legal solutions are lagging behind technological changes. I would like also say that today we have the debate as to how to have this consensus. Today we have IGF in Serbia, the second one. We are part of the international conversations on this topic. The topics are, and you see this with the structure of today's IGF, it's intertwined with different interests and sectors. This is very important for everything that can be found today is the legal framework. Part of the society that can actively participate in this process. In order to have this active participation, we have to have the knowledge. It seems to me that we have heard this on the previous panels. We need to raise the capacities of the society as a whole by having the multi-sectoral approach, encouraging the capacity for different stakeholders in order to be able to respond to AI-related challenges, the digital challenges, and also the challenges for this legal framework to really be as it should be and to protect the rights us as citizens.
Yes, we've touched the topic of accountability, which is really very important in this area and where we do not have the response. Inevitably, this is a topic that we need to provide an answer in order to be able to regulate and to govern the area. Professor, you as someone who gathered practice and theory, and we are very happy to have you here today. We would like to hear your broader opinion and both angles. Thank you very much for your invitation. Yes, actually, I'm an electrical engineer, and I did my studies in order actually to deal with artificial intelligence, and I actually dealt with artificial intelligence prediction neural networks. I always thought that the application of AI is the space where all the algorithms need to be double-checked. Algorithms in the code are not the real ones if they cannot be applied. The current state of affairs, if we talk about the AI, is the direct consequence of the hardware development, the processors that dealt with graphics processing were ideal for machine-based learning, because in these algorithms we always calculated matrices and tensors, and these processes were very, very important for that. Today we have heterogeneous systems where we have middle parallel processes and smaller numbers of higher parallel process. These hardwares are available, and they are the direct cause for the development of AI and its application. 30 years ago, these algorithms were nearly the same. The simplest algorithms from that period are at the same time the easiest ones to be deployed today. The raw force is what is behind the AI. As my fellow professor Sanja said, this is the way the things are today. These algorithms deal with the large quantities of data and are based on the statistical artificial intelligence, which in comparison to what we expect to see in a few years, and which is a general AI, is way simpler. They try to find frequency-based rules, and on the basis of these patterns, you can have everything now. Text creations, image creations, everything is based on the statistical AI. What is on the horizon in the forthcoming years is the causal machine learning and general AI, where conclusions will be different in relation to these statistical algorithms. We will require less time to train these algorithms, and their behavior will be similar to the behavior of human beings. I really expect that AI will be linked to robotics. We will have robots around us that will drive, run around. We will be able to communicate with them just as well as we communicate with one another. They will learn from us just as well as our children learn from us. They will help us perform some tasks and also do some jobs that are very dangerous that we as human beings won't be able to do. And this is what I expect from AI. Yes, okay, let's go back to the issue of accountability. that we just brushed. AI uses disposable information, processes them, modifies them thanks to the existing algorithms. Who is responsible, who is accountable if a damage is caused? It's us. AI is way more dangerous than atomic energy, but it's way easier to control it. When there is a defect in a nuclear power plant, we cannot prevent a disaster, but when it comes to a defect in AI, programmers should have an answer. If we talk about the current algorithms that are used in AI, programmers can develop algorithms and teach AI. Fortunately or unfortunately, we have algorithms that can be continually improved. The algorithms can be trained. These models can be trained, and this is why the programmer is accountable. Responsibility lies within people, not only on the programmer, but also on the user, on the way in which AI is used. Can it be useful or just the contrary, damaging? Another question for legal science. Digital Service Act regulated in a certain way platforms. Is a similar model applicable? This is a hypothetical question.
Everything is hypothetical. We have only guidelines. Well, the EU doesn't have any mandatory acts, but I will build on what my colleague said. When it comes to responsibility, very interesting, because this package of regulations of the EU that are related to artificial intelligence regulates the responsibility. It's interesting for you to have explained things in this way. So lawyers know what is the system of accountability when it comes to providers, and it concerns the existing one. The standard form of accountability is objective accountability or responsibility of the business entity. It means that you have to prove for someone to be held accountable. So the assumption is that this entity has not acted with the due care, and this traditional system of responsibility for damages is unapplicable to AI. And this was recognized by the legislature, partially, the EU, and in these regulations, drafts thereof, there is a rule that one is responsible in terms of objective responsibility, which is a novelty because in the system that exists related to the responsibility of the providers for injuries created in internet services, the problem is how, in reality, one should establish who is the responsible person when this form of responsibility is based on subjective responsibility. This model of objective responsibility, well, is related to the software engineer, and it is an excellent exit from this situation and a response to the answer who will be accountable for damage, not only financial damage, but also damage against rights and liberties. Look from the software engineer to be accountable for a model of AI is as if you would ask the producer of cars to be accountable for an incident on the road. Yes, I understand your logic. And I said or. It depends whether the software engineer is the one that is directly putting in place the system, putting in operation, or someone else applying AI. The AI systems will become increasingly autonomous. So the software engineers will program parts of architecture of the system, and the system will continue to live and to learn based on the data fed by the users. So we have this shift. The old AI systems where you get a trained model already are not usable. So it's clear to us, the developers of machine learning, it's clear to them that a model of machine learning, when they come out from the laboratory and the production track, they start their own life. They must be always fed with new data in order to be in sync with the changes which are happening in any context. Our surroundings is non-stationary. Us people are resourceful in dealing with the changing environment. In order for AI to be applied, it must be learned, taught, and improved all the time, because new data is added, new examples for training, and it must learn new things. When you have a user which is malicious, feeding data which is malicious, this system from a benign one that helping people can become a bad system. But this is not the responsibility of the developers. If it was, because they, made the system be able to be developed, it's as if someone would say there is the accountability of the car manufacturers because they have made a car which goes 300 kilometers per hour. I understand your concern. No, I'm not afraid, but I fear that we will hastily understand AI. I understand, but we're speaking about responsibility for potential damage. We must have a causal relationship, absent of which, so the relationship between developer and the damage, there will be no responsibility of the developer. But the use of AI systems, and it's as using a dangerous thing. If you feed them with data which is related to the damages, the developer will not be responsible, but the one that has applied AI with such harmful consequences. So it has a cause, injury and damage, etc., etc. Well, if they did their job according to with due care, there will be no responsibility.
What do you think about that? Are there any indications of the response in the national legislation? Yes, can you hear me? Yeah. I would like to say something about Digital Service Act. In that act, we have the occurrence which the definition of platforms and search engines as very large. Search engines and platforms that are considered by the EU to be very large. I don't want to name them, but there are about 10 of them. These are Facebook, Instagram, some Google services. These are the platforms that pertain to the DSA scope, and therefore the protection of security, of intellectual property rights of minors is required. The legislation and the tentative of adopting soft law and acts is somewhere in between. On the one hand, we require protection, which is recommended to the states, and on the other hand, we address the preparation, deployment of AI, and we need certain standard settings. We need to take into account human rights and go towards multi-sectoral approach while creating AI tools and learning systems. I think that it has become a trend. An individual cannot be responsible of it all, because very often we see the consequence only after an application has already been used. Chat GP is very useful, can be used even for homework. My daughter acquired some very important information about Marko the Prince, Marko Kraljević. But on the other hand, we have consequences of it. These consequences can be seen in the world's level. It can generate fake news. It can create disinformation, malinformation, misinformation. It can create horrible contents linked to the protection of minors. There's also the issue of intellectual property rights. Did my daughter say to her teacher what she's done? So who's using it? How do we use the chat GP? We don't all share the same values. We do not all want to achieve something positive. So this is why these issues are very complex. And this is why I personally think that if we have a common denominator, it should be education. Education of all those who work in the state administration, policy making, to everyone else. Education is something that will help us keep up the pace with positive examples. If I may just provide another highlight, I'm currently reading Agatha Christie's biography. She said that she was influenced by her car. Her car changed her life. Internet changed my life. What will change our children's lives? Only education can help us in any way. And if we look into the regulation, it can only help us. If we talk about Agatha Christie's time, we had cross-borders regulation. Now, in our times, we will be talking about AI regulations. We do have a common denominator. We do know how to use a car. And I think that according to the same principle, in the future, we will have the AI regulation in the world where it will only globally be possible. I will leave the conclusion for the end. Yes, I think that we should leave some time to our audience. This is a very hot topic. This is a burning issue. We unfortunately have only 10 minutes. I would like now to open the floor for our audience. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate. Please state your name and ask concrete questions. Good day, thank you. I'm a consultant for intellectual property in IT business, and my question regards intellectual property rights. My question is for Professor Savčić.
My question is related to authorship, because we're in the situation that we all know the technology and maybe a software can be created by AI. Are we in the situation that we should change our laws about patents, authors' works, and that the author can ask whether the author can be AI, or to seek for a different solution? No, nothing should be changed. This is my response. Things are very simple, at least legally. Simply, one is hypothetical when you ask the question whether an author's work was created by AI or maybe this is a human creation. The question will be asked only if anyone asks. Nobody will check whether AI has written a song or an AI system or man. And according to the right, the author's work must be a human creation. A machine cannot, a system cannot, a software cannot be a legal entity. And maybe, I'm not sure what kind of change could initiate legal changes. My question is, what would we get if an author's copyright would be assigned to AI? We can discuss whether anything is an author's work and whether a subject can, an entity can enjoy an authorship right, a copyright, without some form was created by him or AI, but we cannot install AI as a legal, as an entity enjoying any right. As far as I understand AI, there is no spontaneous product of AI. There is always an order. For example, we can discuss whether creativity is contained in data, but I would like to ask a different question. What would we get with an entity being an AI system? Nothing, because there is a goal, there is right, and every right has an obligation also. So the question could be, for example, what would happen if there is a copyrighted work that it's used, and that's a problem. Next question. It's more a comment. In terms of objective responsibility and damages, this is the best model to determine who would be held responsible, but technically there are different people that can participate in working in creating AI. A person created, training and implemented the model, and finally the person that possesses the model in terms of the right to economic use, etc., since it is an author's work, right? Of course, there is a problem in terms of who owns the author's work. If you have author's works that are illegally used in data sets and it's sourced to AI, so every product will be a statistical amalgamate of the data set. Now I want to ask a question that in which moment technically and legally we can speak about so-called personhood of the AI itself. What would be the logical and technical aspects of implementation that will be required in order for it to be equated with human intelligence, and what legal standards should be fulfilled?
Is it a question for both of us? I would like to share responsibility. Okay, you go on first. As far as when it comes to the definition of personhood, I'd say it's a causality, conclusion based on causes and consequences. In order to come to complex knowledge, you start from an axiom and then you come to a result. But lately, I realized that a large portion of our intellect is emotional intelligence. Unfortunately, AI does not have any emotion, and this is one of its greatest dangers. I don't know how to incorporate emotions in the AI. Each day, I devote some time to consideration of incorporating emotions into AI, because I think it's going to be a very, very big problem. In my opinion, AI is one of the reasons why I deal with it. I want to define intelligence. I want to be able to define intelligence. What I know about machine-based learning and artificial intelligence, these are basic things. These are just the basis, and basic elementary algorithms cause complex behavior. From one neuron, you can generate complex behavior. And I think that human intellect is way more complex, and that by the end of my life, I will at least go nearer an answer. But very interesting years are before us. I'm really very pleased that you started replying first. From the legal point of view, if we talk about what's personal, what's machine-based, what's very important if we talk about AI and in situations when we need a means for something is a photo intellectual property. But if we perceive everything on a case-by-case basis, is it a mental act? Is it a machine act? But when someone explains what emotions are and what intelligence are, perhaps we will be able to translate it all into an algorithm, which frightens me, but this is it. Well, yes, the law does not deal with emotions. Maja, would you like to add something? No, I think we have another questions. No, no. Do you have some? No, I think that everything has been said. Yes, please. Thank you for this panel. I would like to ask Professor Todorović. I am a great fan of Isaac Asimov, and I'm currently reading his story about robotics. I have to read in English. He says that
I'm composed of strong metal, am continuously conscious and can stand extremes of environment easily. Da li mislite da može doći do toga u robotici konkretno u sledećih 50 godina? Eto. Hvala najlepše, hvala.
Do you think that something like that can occur in robotics?
AI and robotics will have an exponential development in the next 15 years. Unfortunately, it carries different harms. One of those is the use of artificial intelligence in military purposes, especially aggressively, systems of attacking infantry and, well, soldiers. This is the first thing that should be banned. Of course, I understand the concerns for human rights, but I think that this is the most dangerous thing, the use of AI in for military purposes. These are not defensive systems. Defensive systems, perhaps acting against hardware from an attack. This is what I would limit at the international level. I would immediately ban the use of AI against people. What artificial intelligence in the form of intelligent robots, what it could contribute to humankind is the use in medicine. Something that would definitely, what I should do is to contribute, help us develop as a species. That means that through artificial intelligence, we should help each other, ourselves, using it as a tool to understand each other, and then improve us as a species and prepare ourselves for, 100, 200 years, that will be a big challenge for us as a species. I believe that this is a period where there will be moments where us as a species will have to, well, continue development, our grandchildren, people that will be twice as intelligent as us, or we will disappear as species and end up in something which is very similar to zoos or natural parks.
Thank you for your questions. Do we have any more questions or comments from the audience? If not, we can try to wrap up this panel on the basis of our today's discussion. What would be your message? We do not have a definite answer. If we talk about accountability, I'm jurist myself, and I understand it. I hope that everyone else will understand that the question of authorship, of accountability, they are really very complex. What would be your conclusion? What can be a message? Okay, Mike, could you go first, please? Yes, my conclusion would be that today we had the opportunity to hear a lot of different experts. We do have the expertise in different fields when it comes to artificial intelligence. Globally speaking, what is needed for us, for human beings, to timely respond to all challenges is to put together all the experts and to provide an alert reply. The changes are swift and they occur every day. And I think that global policy making is too slow in comparison to all the changes that occur. On the global level, I don't know if I'm right, but let's think about it together. Can it be perhaps a new authority that should be established? Because I think that coordination between international organizations is also very slow, and everything needs to be speeded up. We should put all the experts from the entire world together. We have to put together their research possibilities, their legal possibilities. So if there is one message, it is networking. And this is actually what IGF does. But it needs to go cross-border and be stronger. This is what I think. Yes, Professor, please. Responsibility lies within us. AI is not something that we should be afraid of. AI and robotics will bring us a lot of benefits, and thanks to it, we will be able to explore and find out new things. We will be able to know more thanks to AI. As a species, we will be able to better develop thanks to the symbiosis with AI, but we must understand that the responsibility lies within us. Every line, every datum that we enter is our responsibility. What we decide to apply, to develop, will influence our future. This is something that's more dangerous than the atomic nuclear energy, but that can at the same time be more useful and more easily managed in comparison to the atomic energy, provided that we know what we're doing, provided that we have laws that govern it, and provided that as human beings we're aware of benefits and dangers. We should use more than 20% of our brains. Thank you. Then we will surpass AI. Incontestably, AI was created by a human being, which means that it is governed by the human beings. we need to learn how to manage, how to use it, which implies a multidisciplinary approach, raising awareness, education. Someone said that they were not in favor of repressive measures, but there are times when we need to react. The first step must be more repressive. We cannot slowly take stances. If we talk about the world population, a very small number of people is aware of artificial intelligence and of its consequences. So I think that we need to adapt our future acts to those who are not aware of the dangers that AI brings. After today's panel, I'm at least 1% more aware of what it is, and I'm already afraid. Okay, everyone has learned something. Thank you very much to the audience and to the panelists. Please stay with us until the end. Thank you very much, Dejan, for having moderated it. Thank to all the panelists. I hope that this panel has opened new perspectives. If we talk about the AI development, we will have a longer break now. The lunch is there, so we will reconvene in 1 hour, and we will be talking about IT business in times of crisis.